the birth certificate issue.
Why don't you?
Because you know what? 3 weeks ago when I started, I thought he was probably born in this country. And now I really have a much bigger doubt than I did before.
But based on what?
And you know what? His grandmother in Kenya said he was born in Kenya and she was there and witnessed the birth. Okay? He doesn't have a birth certificate or he hasn't shown it.
Donald Trump's taxes and, so far, his refusal to make them public.
Let's start with basic facts. So far, Donald Trump has not made his tax returns or summaries of them public,
while Trump himself has pledged to release them, but only when the IRS has finished its audits.
As what's called a certificate of live birth. That is something that's easy to get. When you want a birth certificate, it's very hard to get.
But it's considered the equivalent. And in the
it's not the equivalent.
In the state of Hawaii, they said they have seen this document. It is evidence that he was born in the United States. That's good enough for them. Scholars have looked at it.
A birth certificate is not even close.
When the White House made the president's birth certificate public 2 weeks later, Trump questioned if the document was real. And even as a presidential candidate, in January of this year, Trump refused to acknowledge the president was indeed born in Hawaii.
Was he a natural-born citizen?
Who knows? Who knows? Who cares right now?
and he gives a consistent explanation.
And I'm under audit, a routine audit, and when the audit's complete, I'll release my returns. I don't know when that's going to be, but when the audit is complete, I'll release my returns. I have no problem with it. It doesn't matter.
But this is his choice. The IRS confirmed this year that nothing prevents Trump or any of us from releasing personal tax returns anytime.
A certificate of live birth is not even signed by anybody. I saw his. I read it very carefully. Doesn't have a serial number, doesn't have a signature. There's not even a signature.
Do you believe he's lying?
I'm starting to think that he was not born here.
Do you believe he's lying, Donald? Come on, just answer.
He spent $2 million in legal fees trying to get away from this issue.
Right after Donald Trump got elected, one of the first things he did, even though he claimed he never would, was settle the Trump University fraud case. He actually doled out $25 million to students who alleged that he had defrauded them.
Many of our class members, for example, Sonny Lowe, still has $9,000 of credit card debt that he's been paying off for years and years, paying half his paycheck from Home Depot to satisfy that credit card debt. And now he'll be able to get the monies from this settlement and finally become debt-free, as many of our class members remain in some type of debt because of what happened here.
Whether former Trump University students will be allowed to press individual fraud suits against Trump that fall outside last year's $25 million settlement, Curiel will determine whether the $25 million settlement is fair to thousands of people who paid anywhere from about $1,500 for a 3-day seminar up to about $35,000 for the Gold Elite mentorship.
And if he weren't lying, why wouldn't he just solve it? And I wish he would, because if he doesn't, it's one of the greatest scams in the history of politics and in the history period.
Yeah.
The entire university was a scam. It was such a scam that they were forced to not use the word university anymore.
Right.
Because New York said, there's a process by which you get called a university. You can't just call yourself a university. And they're like, oh, I mean, even if we're scamming people? Yes, especially if you're scamming people.
I have people that actually have been studying it and they cannot believe what they're finding.
You have people now down there searching, I mean, in Hawaii?
Absolutely, and they cannot believe what they're finding. I would like to have him show his birth certificate.
If I decide to run for office, I'll produce my tax returns, absolutely, and I would love to do that.
And by the way, I just find it super questionable that someone who would be a billionaire would go out of his way to scam individuals out of $1,500 to $35,000, right?
He ain't no billionaire.
You see, Trump's personal taxes are also the taxes of his company. The Trump Organization, with its 500 associated companies, files as a kind of family business whose dealings are taxed as Trump's personal income. Which brings us to the bigger point. What could Trump's taxes tell us? A lot.
Bill Gates and Warren Buffett aren't running $1,500 scams.
Yeah.
And you know it. And hey, let me ask you something. If you're a Trump voter, is he such a special snowflake and so weak that even though he's right, that Trump University was wonderful and it gave them the greatest education in this country, he's going to give them money anyway because he's so weak? No, he doesn't want to fight. He's so unbelievably weak that he doesn't want to fight on an issue that he's right about. And then he's just going to give $25 million to them. You think that Trump is that weak? Which one is it? Is he a scam artist or pathetically weak?
A lot. How successful the businessman actually is, what ties does he have abroad, how his companies operate there, if and how much he gives to charity, and whether Trump pays any taxes at all. Trump likes to bring that up himself.
If I decide to run for office, I'll produce my tax returns, absolutely, and I would love to do that.
The only one that cares is the press, I will tell you. And even the press, I tell you, it's not a big deal.
You don't think there are any voters out there who...
I don't think so, no. I think people don't care.
But is that true? Actually, a recent poll found 2/3 of likely voters think seeing candidates' tax returns is important.
You are not allowed to be a president if you're not born in this country. He may not have been born in this country. And I'll tell you what, 3 weeks ago I thought he was born in this country. Right now I have some real doubt.
Now to perspective. How unusual is Trump's refusal to release? In modern politics, he is alone.
And can I be honest with you? I hope he can. Because if he can't, and if he wasn't born in this country, which is a real possibility, I'm not saying it happened, I'm saying it's a real possibility, much greater than I thought 2 or 3 weeks ago, then he has pulled one of the great cons in the history of politics.
The White House, the day was a battle over truth. His aides had said it recently, but for the first time, Donald Trump himself acknowledged President Obama is a natural-born American citizen.
President Barack Obama was born in the United States, period.
It was a complete reversal for the man who spent years stoking the so-called birther controversy.
By any definition, Donald Trump is a disgusting fraud.
At the White House today, President Obama himself declined to respond to Trump's public change on the issue.
I was pretty confident about where I was born. I think most people were as well. My hope would be that the presidential election reflects more serious issues than that.
But Trump today raised another birther controversy. He alleged Clinton is to blame.
Hillary Clinton and her campaign of 2008 started the birther controversy. I finished it.
There is no evidence of that. Fact checks proving it to be false abound. Clinton's 2008 campaign did fight tooth and nail with President Obama, but she never questioned his birthplace.
I have people that actually have been studying it and they cannot believe what they're finding.
You have people now down there searching, in Hawaii?
Absolutely, and they cannot believe what they're finding. I would like to have him show his birth certificate.
There were massive marches across the country, people protesting tax marches, people demanding that President Trump release his tax returns, as presidents have routinely since Jimmy Carter. And that was the subject of a tweet this morning from President Trump. Let's put it up on the screen. President apparently not liking those marches. He says, I did what was an almost impossible thing to do for a Republican, easily won the Electoral College. Now tax returns are brought up again.
I would like to have him show his birth certificate.
Jillian, this president apparently thinks transparency is overrated.
So that's the message. I'm getting it loud and clear. But on both fronts here, with the visitor logs and with his tax returns, if I were advising him, I would say, Mr. President, bad news never gets better with age. All of this information will eventually be known. The White House visitor logs will be subject to FOIA requests in the future. We will see who came in and out of the White House, regardless of whether there were national security implications. That will be known. I imagine, I can't predict the future, but I imagine that at some point we'll get full tax returns from the president from the last few years.
If I decide to run for office, I'll produce my tax returns, absolutely, and I would love to do that.
So I think the administration really needs to kind of buckle down on messaging here when it comes to what are you going to tell the American people when you're out of office and all this information becomes known? How are you going to deal with that then?
But the counter-argument would be, Jennifer, yes, people do apparently care about this. In the polls, by a margin of more than 2 to 1, they say they want to see the president release his tax returns. On the other hand, Lord knows this was a big issue during the campaign, and he's President Trump.
We would like to see it. He has an excuse for why he's not going to release it. This is from a previous debate, but it's the same general argument, and here is him explaining why he won't release the returns.
I will say this. Mitt Romney looked like a fool when he delayed and delayed and delayed, and Harry Reid baited him so beautifully. And Mitt Romney didn't file his return until September 21st of 2012, about a month and a half before the election. And it cost him bigly. As far as my return, I want to file it, except for many years, I've been audited every year. 12 years or something like that. Every year they audit me, audit me, audit me. Nobody gets audited. I have friends that are very wealthy people. They never get audited. I get audited every year. I will absolutely give my return, but I'm being audited now for 2 or 3 years, so I can't do it until the audit is finished, obviously, and I think people would understand that.
He's hoping that people will understand that, and in the most recent town hall, he says that he was going to release a letter explaining that he was being audited to flesh things out. We have a little bit of information.
He promised that to John Dickerson as well of CBS
Oh,
News,
really?
that he would do that. Yeah.
Yes, and so some letter has come out. We have a section from it. IRS examinations of Trump's tax returns from 2002 to 2008 have been closed administratively, according to Trump's lawyers, without assessment or payment. Now, that means that examination of those returns is finished. So you would assume, well, then can't we get those 6 years of returns? Well, no, he's got a clever trick for that, too. The lawyer said Trump's recent tax returns, the ones that the IRS is still auditing, are just extensions of the older returns for a decade plus, because they include items that are attributable to continuing transactions or activities that were also reported on returns from 2008 and earlier. In this sense, the pending examinations are continuous of prior closed examinations. And so isn't that clever? Even though we could theoretically release the earlier ones, there's just extensions now, and so it's all tied up. And it might seem complicated, but it's not complicated, because whether they're being audited or not means dick. It means absolutely nothing. There is nothing stopping him from releasing returns as they're being audited. That is simply a myth that he has manufactured.
They're made in where? China? Ties are made in China.
And here, and this is the way it is the bottom line. I started off in Brooklyn, New York, not so long ago, with a small loan. And built a business that today is worth well over $10 billion. If I'm elected president, I will end the special interest monopoly in Washington, D.C.
Of all new income created today is going to the top 1%. That is what a rigged economy is about, and that is what, together, we are going to change. But we are confronting not only a rigged economy, we are confronting a corrupt political system. It is a system which, because of Citizens United, billionaires like the Koch brothers and others are able to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to elect candidates who represent the wealthy and the powerful. They want tax breaks for the very wealthiest people in this country, and then they want to chip away at Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. They want to cut back education, and they want to destroy virtually every important piece of environmental regulation put in place over the last 40 years. They want massive increases in military spending, but they also want to eliminate after-school programs. And our vision, and I want everybody in this room tonight to know this, our vision is the vision of the American people. Poll after poll tells us you can go to the most conservative parts of America and you ask people whether they think it makes sense to give tax breaks to billionaires and cut Social Security and Medicare and Meals on Wheels and after-school programs, and people will look you in the eye and say, "Are you crazy? That's That's not what America can be. It is not acceptable to me, it is not acceptable to you, that we remain the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a right. And that is why I will soon be introducing legislation calling for a Medicare for all single-payer program. Hundreds of thousands of people are coming out for rallies all across this country. We are the majority of the American people. The American people do not want billionaires to get tax breaks. They don't want to see our environment destroyed. They don't want to see nutrition programs cut for hungry kids. We are the majority. It is time we flex our muscles. It is time we got involved in a way we have never done before. It is time to make the political revolution. Thank you all.